Happy Monday, everybody. It's afternoon everywhere, I think, right now. Todd Widom, are you there? Oh, you disappeared for a second. I don't know where you went. Oh, there you are. You're back. Hey, Todd.
How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm excited to be back on another show with you, Lisa.
I know it's been a while, and I swear during COVID, I haven't really done that many audio only podcasts. Almost everything, all the interviews I've been doing have been video, which has been fun for me because I get to see your face while we chat. And I think it's been fun for my audience too, to get to see faces and put faces to voices. But just to give the audience a couple pieces of background information. So, first of all, let me just say, if you have questions while Todd and I are chatting, please use the comments and just type your question in the comments and I'll see them and we can address them as we have our conversation. But as most of you are aware, last week USTA made a big announcement, let go of over 100 people, offered some people buyouts, and all in an effort to get their budget under control and to clean house a little bit with the new head of USTA coming on board. And so Todd and I thought it would be a good opportunity to chat a little bit about that. Also, we found out today that national hard courts are indeed happening. And I was just going to show y'all. Hang on, let me see if I can get that's not what I wanted to, yeah, that is what I wanted to show you. This is the announcement from USTA, which I posted on our Facebook page, announcing that national hard courts will take place in August for the 16s and 18s. No national hard courts for 14s and 12s. They have canceled those altogether, but for the 16s and 18s, the 18s will be held in their usual spots. The boys will be playing in Kalamazoo and the girls will be playing in San Diego. And then the 16s have been moved to Mobile, Alabama and Rome, Georgia. Draw sizes have been cut, and there's going to be a limit on the number of people that can come. And all of that information is on the tournament website. So I want to I'm going to take that back down. I want to just encourage everybody to go take a look at the tournament websites. And if you need help finding those, if you look for my post about national hard courts on this Facebook page, in the comments, I've put the link for each of the 4 divisions, the boys 18s, girls 18s, boys 16s, girls 16s. So you can go in and you can look and see the player selection and any other special stuff that's on there. So that said, Todd, you got an email that you were going to share with us, and I know you wanted to read that. So I'm going to put that up on the screen right now also, because I think it'll be easier for people. They can take a look. Todd, do you want to go ahead and read that and let us know what's going on there?
Sure. So, yeah, I prepared an email for our show today about USTA player development. I feel like, going through the US juniors, all the way through, basically the 10 and unders, all the way through the 18 and unders, and then becoming a college player and then a professional player, maybe I have a little bit different perspective on the USTA, and also coming from a guy that didn't really get much help from the USTA. So it might not always be so positive. I felt like I may have deserved a little bit more help from the governing body, as a lot of my peers did. But this isn't really sour. This is really factual based on the USTA over the past 25 years, and then basically going from Key Biscayne, where they had a center, to Boca Raton at the Ever Tennis Academy, to then Lake Nona in Orlando. So I prepared an email, and I would like to read it to our viewers. And it was kind of my take on the USTA over basically the past 25 years. So, and I'll start now. So the goal of the USTA player development program since the year 2000 was to take players from the juniors right to the professional ranks, bypassing bypassing college. So this had been somewhat done by the Bolletary Tennis Academy in previous generations with players like Jimmy Arias, Pablo Araya, Tommy Haas, Xavier Malisse, Jim Courier, Andre Agassi, and you can go on and on and on, maybe Maria Sharapova, so many phenomenal players. As tennis has become more physical on the men's side, this wasn't likely to happen after the year 2000, which was basically around when I turned pro. We had a couple of Americans like Andy Roddick, Robbie Ginepri, Taylor Dent, but there was a whole crop of American male players that went to college and then became professional players. So yet this goal by the USTA was pursued by the USTA looking for replacements of previous American champions. So the USTA, with a budget of $15 to $19 million, the model pursued was to identify the 6 to 7 best 14 to 18-year-old boys and girls in the country and offer them a spot at the USTA Player Development Center at the Everett Tennis Academy in Boca Raton, Florida. So here's a shocking number, is that's over $400 million in the past 25 years, where salaries were top heavy and coaches, to quite honestly tell you, weren't paid too well when they were the coaches, but it was a very top heavy on the salary side. So dormitories were built for these kids at the Everett Tennis Academy to house them. Per child, there was approximately what each child cost to do this properly based on their tennis training, the coaching, the traveling, to the racket stringing, to everything. The approximate number per child spent on each one per year was $100,000 to $150,000 invested in each child, and like I said, those were all the expenses incurred. The coaches who had created these players lost their best students. So the USTA, they invited these particular top-ranked players in the United States to come and basically train for free, manage their career, everything, take care of their child. And so these coaches, they lost some of their best players, if not their best player, the best player that they had. So these players were assigned to coaches chosen by the USTA and often changed as needed by the organization. So what I can tell you is that when you've trained a really high-level player and a player that's really doing well, and then you cut the ties with that coach, that's really difficult. These great players were built on amazing relationships with their private coaches. So this really rubbed people the wrong way. So some of the elite players chose to stay at home and continue what they had been doing. Most couldn't afford to let this so-called opportunity pass them by. If someone's going to say, listen, I'm going to put all this money into your child, it's going to be free, we're going to have coaches around them and traveling and expenses paid, you know what? You're thinking that this is a tremendous opportunity, and it should have been. So yet the idea of letting your teenager move to Florida to be raised by a tennis organization that had no experience raising a child, they admitted this assertion later on, was a difficult one for parents. In fact, many of them actually regret that today, sending their child off on their own. Each player would be assessed in August of every year and kept or dropped, so the groups were not always static. To get to the end of the story, this model didn't work on the men's side, but it worked very well on the girls' side. The girls' side has had a lot of success compared to the men's side. So the girls, like I wrote here, had very good results under Kathy Rinaldi, who I know fairly well, who has done a tremendous job. Most of the boys weren't physically ready for the professional game and went to college. So the mentality was that if you're not ready to turn pro at 18 and you go to college, you're cut. They didn't want players to go to college. They wanted professional, players at 18 years old, and they wanted to produce the next American champion, like they had done, say, in the Agassi generation, Sampras generation, Courier, that generation of players. That's what they were really trying to do.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So this points to the philosophical argument surrounding the USTA player development program. Should an elite player in, say, Dallas or Seattle or New York or Oklahoma be taken from their coach, moved into a new environment, and assigned a random coach as a teenager, or should the USTA simply contribute money to the situation that was already successful at home and offer assistance where able, training camps with all the best players every 3 months or so, funding, and giving many more junior players the same opportunity? Since the move to Orlando, Lake Nona, the USTA budget has been a bit differently with top 100 players, which this is surprising because when you're a top 100 player, you're earning an income where you can hire a coach or a physio on your own and still be able to earn a nice living, but yet the USTA is still funding this. So that's now taking away maybe from lower ranked professionals or juniors coming up that really need that funding to become a much higher level player, hopefully a professional player. So again, that dried up money that could be used to help junior players to deepen the talent pool of upcoming players aspiring to be professionals. Who knows where this is going, but the player development budget has been slashed, and it seems that it will report to USTA Community Tennis. In all, it was a huge amount of money that went to a top-heavy, failed organization. Again, the girls, in my opinion, did very well, but in the end, it couldn't save this developmental program. So here's what I can tell you is that the move to Boca Raton was based on really trying to help and develop relationships with the private sector coaches that were doing a great job developing the country's best tennis players. They knew that the program at Everett Tennis Academy in Boca Raton didn't work. And so now when Martin Blackmon came in, they tried to really resurrect the program and really try to help develop great relationships with the private sector coaches. They knew they couldn't do it on their own. So I had a bunch of my buddies that just got laid off from the USTA, but they were phenomenal coaches trying to do the job with the USTA. I've spoken to some of them. It's a very tough time, but what I can tell you is that I think that the USTA was really trying to fix the issues that they had previously with the private sector. So they would bring in these top players maybe to camps. They bring in the coaches as well. So they would try to bring in myself or my partner Pierre, and especially with one of our players, Ronnie, and they did it, and it worked quite well. So this was very unfortunate, but I think that they were probably headed in the right direction, and they had learned from previous mistakes and things that didn't work.
Well, so a couple things. Thank you for that. That was a really good kind of background summary on what was happening at USTA, how it changed in recent years under Martin Blackmon's leadership. And also I wanted to say, Dewey Evans, hey, thanks for watching. Dewey's my partner in crime on Wednesday mornings for our tennis takeaways with Lisa and Dewey. But Dewey says nobody takes players. Players, or more precisely the parents, choose to move. And that is absolutely right. And I think Todd's point was, though, that USTA was dangling such a shiny carrot in front of these families with offering to pick up all development costs, housing costs, that it was very difficult to say no to that opportunity, especially if finances were a concern for your family. But the flip side of that was, if the child didn't continue to perform up to the expectations that USTA had for them, then the child would be cut loose from the program and be sent back to the families to figure out what to do from that point forward. And I think we lost some kids during those kinds of transitions. So that was tough. But what's happening now with this latest announcement from USTA is player development is ceasing to be its own entity at USTA and has been rolled into the community development or community tennis box at USTA, if you will. And I'm still unclear on what that means for junior tennis, for junior competition, for player development overall. how is, who is going to be making decisions about junior competition calendars? And we've got this new structure that's supposed to start in January with the 7 levels of junior tournaments. Who's going to be in charge of managing all that and analyzing it to make sure things are working properly? I've reached out to people that I've been working with at USTA and player development over the last few years, but it seems that a lot of USTA email addresses are no longer functioning. So I'm not even sure my emails are getting through. I have not as yet gotten any confirmation back from any of the people that I've reached out to. Todd, you're there in Florida. You have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. So what are you hearing?
Well, here's something that I don't understand, which might be cleared up in the future, is that you have this beautiful center in Lake Nona. I've been there for a bunch of tournaments. Okay. And you have a section of player development. Okay. Only the top level players are allowed in that section. And you're talking about red clay courts, indoor courts, outdoor courts. And then you have conference rooms, you have training rooms, you have all of these things going on.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on.
Well, it's been shut down, right? But I think Lake Nona reopened today, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, but there is no player development anymore.
Right.
So what do you do with that now? And that center, I could only imagine how much it costs to upkeep that center. So it's an incredible place, an incredible center. I've been there, like I said, a bunch of times for junior events. So, I guess only time will tell, what's going to happen, at Lake Nona.
Right. And the sad thing is that, so we were waiting to hear what was going to happen with national hard courts, right? We heard today that national hard courts for 16s and 18s, again, for those of you joining us late, that was announced today that those 16s and 18s are happening. 14s and 12s national hard courts have been canceled for 2020. But they've moved the 16s away from Kalamazoo and away from San Diego for the girls, presumably so that they don't have so many people in one facility, so that it can be safer, with COVID-19. So I get that, and I think that was a good move. What was shocking to me was that Lake Nona wasn't the place where they moved the National Hard Court Championships. I was really surprised about that.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about that. It was surprising to me that they split up the 16s and 18s. And you know what I'm thinking as a coach? This makes it a little bit more confusing for me and how to schedule and where to send my coaches now that they're split up, right? With that 16s and 18s. So now it becomes more complicated for me. So that's what I was really thinking. I wasn't even thinking about Lake Nona, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So, but that's a very good point. You have your national center and you're not using it for your biggest national tournament.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of bizarre to me. And I get, so the 16s, like I mentioned, the boys are going to play at the Mobile Tennis Center, which, if any of you have ever been there, it's a beautiful facility. It's hot as all get out in the summer, but the people that run that facility do an incredible job. They really do. The girls 16s are going to play at the new tennis center in Rome, Georgia, which is also a beautiful facility, also hot as all get out in the summer. And because it's still so new, there's not even a ton of shade at that facility yet, because though they have planted, the plantings aren't mature yet to provide enough shade. So it's going to be really interesting. And I'm sorry, I keep looking over to the right because we've got a lot of comments coming in. One of the questions that, and Todd, I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but one of the questions I posed earlier today on the college recruiting Facebook group is, are the college coaches going to be allowed to go to national hard courts and recruit? Because we know the NCAA extended the dead period for tennis through the end of July, and national hard courts is taking place in August. So presumably they will be, technically able to communicate and interact with prospective student athletes at national hard courts. But the question still remains about budget, travel. Is college tennis even happening in 2021, in the spring? There's just so much up in the air right now. Have you heard anything?
No, you know, what I can tell you is that a couple of the students that I have are going through that process of being recruited. And so I've been reaching out to some coaches, and yeah, I think the best thing you can do is maybe send videos
Yeah.
to the college coaches, and then, you know, obviously the student can contact them, and as well as maybe coach and everything. So I've been doing that as well. So I'm going through that process for a couple of my full-time students. But you know, that's really it. I mean, I don't think there's much that you can do. I mean, I've sent some emails. I've received no replies
Yeah, they
from
can't.
coaches, and you know, I can tell you a bunch of these college coaches are probably hoping they have a job. So it doesn't
Yeah.
surprise a really bad timing as well. But you know, we do the best we can.
Right. And I will say, even though it is a dead period right now for recruiting, that only applies to the college coaches. It doesn't apply to the players. So if you have a child who is in that recruiting age range, your child needs to be reaching out to the college coaches. Even though the coaches can't reciprocate right now, the players can still be sending emails, sending video, you know, keeping the coach abreast of what they're doing to become ready to play at the collegiate level. So talk about what you're doing in terms of training at home if you're not able to be back out on the court. So I feel like tennis is open pretty much everywhere around the country right now, if I'm not mistaken. Alice asked a really good question. Alice, this is an ongoing thing, right? Will USTA encourage the NCAA to recruit American players, especially boys, as a path to professional tennis? I'm assuming she means. And so my understanding is this is not a USTA decision. It's not an NCAA decision. It is in the hands of the ITA that they set the rules, and they've said that there's really nothing that they're prepared to do at this point in that regard to, you know, set limits on the number of international players, for example, receiving scholarships or taking roster spots. And we have this conversation a lot. You know, I've really kind of done a 180 on the whole internationals on college teams thing because of my kid's experience in college and the fact that his best friend out of his college tennis experience is a kid from New Zealand who he never would have met if the school didn't recruit, you know, internationally. So, I mean, I agree that we need to see more American kids on the rosters, but the onus is also on the parents and the players to educate themselves about schools outside of the top 25 schools, right? We do a really bad job as an industry talking about schools outside the top 25. We do a horrific job talking about junior colleges or NAIA schools or Division II schools. We do a little bit better with D1 and D3, but I suspect if you polled a group of tennis parents and junior players, they wouldn't be able to name for you the D2 junior college and NAI programs that are within an hour of their house. And most people have at least one of those nearby. So we as an industry need to do a much better job. And that's on the coaches like Todd. It's on the journalists like me, and I don't really put myself in the journalist category, but kind of sorta. And it's on the governing bodies. It's on the ITA. It's on the USTA to feature these schools that we don't all hear about day in and day out because maybe they aren't big football schools or basketball schools, but they still have phenomenal educational opportunities and phenomenal tennis programs. Okay, so I got another question for you. How do you, Todd, envision player development will now interact with private coaches and programs? We don't even know what's player development even going to be. I mean, I think that's the first question.
Well, hopefully it's positive where the head of player development will come out and they'll assess what's going on, why these players are becoming great players, and they'll offer money to the players or the private sector coaches. This is what happens in other countries. Okay, they don't have tremendous centers with 100 courts and grass and red clay and indoor and this. That's your
I don't.
that's pretty rare, right? And so what I can tell you is that, I mean, this isn't positive, but I was the #1 ranked player in the 18 and unders in the United States, okay? And the head of player development at that time lived 10 to 15 minutes from where I was training every single day, and he never once came out to watch me train. And I was going to become a professional player at one point. Okay? So that's a little disturbing, okay? And it's not like he had to get on a plane and go fly all across the country to go look at a player. This was a 10 to 15-minute drive, and never once did this individual come to watch me train.
Wow.
So, I think that it's going to be even more important for families to find a great coach, in the private sector, understand their previous results, understand if this individual understands college placement, what is best for each child based on their academic level and their tennis level and where they would maybe like to be located for college, in the country. These things are super important. So I do this for my students. So I feel like, I might know a little bit about this subject, and I've been doing it for a decade, is that, I map all these things out with the student and the parents so that these select players that are going to go to college tennis, so that they have a great 4 years, and they understand where they can play in the lineup, academically, if this is going to be the right spot for them, coaching wise. If the team is a great fit for this player, then location. I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Right.
So I take a lot of responsibility in that because it's my name on the line. And so I talk and I communicate with the coaches based on the student that I'm helping to place at a certain college.
Sure.
Based on players and player development and private sector coaches, I'm hoping that there will be grants for players and coaches that deserve it. And that, really there are a lot of other countries that have that model because they don't have the centers that we have and those types of things. So I'm hoping that'll happen. We've been saying this for a long, long time.
Yeah. This is nothing new.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these things that are coming out are nothing new at all. It just so happens now during a tough time and the pandemic and everything. Now it came to fruition. So, so basically that's how I feel about that subject.
Well, and I want to encourage people, if you know who Ryler DeHart is, Ryler is a former top junior player, a former collegiate player, a former college coach who recently gave up a sweet coaching gig at which he was having some really good success to work at USTA as a player development coach. And he is one of the coaches who lost his job in this round of cuts last week. And Ryler wrote an extensive letter to the new head of USTA. It's pretty raw, and he expands on a lot of ideas on his thoughts about what happened at USTA, why it happened. And he explains the impact on, him as a coach, but also on him as a husband and a father, who uprooted his family to take this job with USTA. So look that up. I don't want to really share it on our Facebook page because I just don't think it's the appropriate place to share it. But Ryler has put it out on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram. So look up Ryler DeHart and read that. But he also posted a response letter that he got from Mike Dowse, the new head of USTA, basically saying, I'm really sorry this happened to you, and I wish you the best of luck. That's kind of summarizing the response letter, which was a bit disappointing, though I don't know what else Mike could have said. But Ryler's just one out of 100 that have lost their jobs and are now going to have to make some tough decisions about, what are they going to do? Are they going to stay in tennis? Are they going to move outside of the Orlando area? Because how many coaches outside of what's at USTA can Orlando, Florida support? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Right. What I can tell you, and I've told many people over the last 10 years, is that I count my blessings that in my system, it's based on me. So
Yeah.
I haven't had to rely on the USTA, and plenty of people have asked me, Todd, why haven't you become a college coach? Because most of the guys that I competed with in amateur or professional tennis, if they're still in tennis, almost all of them went into either the USTA or into college coaching.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to leave South Florida. So it takes years for you to get into a beautiful head coaching job, and so you're going all over the United States trying to get that great head coaching gig. So for me, it was basically, I need to develop a great system in South Florida, and it needs to work because I don't want to leave this area. My whole family is here and I don't want to relocate. So, that's pressure, but I like that because it's
Well,
based.
and I was right. I was going to say, for somebody like you also are married and have 2 kids, and you need
Right.
the stability of, being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, knowing that each day you know where you're getting up and going to work, and not having to worry that it's going to go away. But so Dewey asked another question. I know we're jumping all over here, but Dewey said, do you think we'll see the return of the national team, the national junior team? I'm assuming he's referring to. Who knows, right? I mean, we haven't heard anything out of USTA yet.
I can tell you, yeah, I mean, obviously you don't know, but I can tell you that the national team, to me, it rubs me the wrong way because you're picking your top elite. These kids are special. They're so cool. They're so great. And I was always brought up being humble, being respectful, and you're no different than anyone else. And so when you all of a sudden give all this to these select kids, they have now, cockiness, arrogance. They're wearing beautiful clothes. Everything's taken care of, and are they really the top couple players? You're telling me that there's no other players in the country that are better than those select kids. And I don't think that's true. So you're talking to a guy that was maybe a little bit on the outside of that growing up here in the United States. And I can tell you that I am not for that at all. I believe that, you go out there, you're humble, you let the racket do the talking. No one is that special. And you know what? If you're doing great and winning titles, fantastic. If you're too good for junior tennis, it may be time for pro tennis. Let's see how good you are. And that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, have you gotten any kind of inside information from your fellow coaches about what is going to happen with this whole junior comp piece of things in USTA? Because again, USTA announced last year they're revamping the junior competition system to set up 7 levels of junior tournaments. That goes into effect in January. And we just don't know. Elliot's saying right now we're all just waiting what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, I get that, Elliot, but I feel like Alice says more kids need your speech, Todd, to be humble and to work hard. And Alice is a phenomenal tennis parent, so I love hearing that from her. I get that we don't know what's going to happen, but at the same time, was it in tennis's best interest for USTA to make this big announcement last week before they announced that they're doing everything in their power to hold the US Open? We heard that today, that it looks like the US Open is going to happen. There are all these restrictions around it, but it looks like it's going to happen. We also heard today that national hard court 16s and 18s are going to happen. But in the midst of all that, USTA announces that player development is being rolled into another department, and they're firing a bunch of coaches without giving us any information of what that means for American junior players. That's what makes me really nervous right now.
I don't have much to say about that. Yeah, I mean,
why not? Come on, Todd.
What I can tell you is that between the coaches and the parents, you have to come up with what you think is best for your child, and try not. And my mom used to tell me this all the time, is that, Todd, you cannot rely on anyone else, right? Because it used to upset me. that I could be doing really well, and I didn't feel like I was getting the necessary help for my career. In fact, I can tell you that when I came out of college tennis in 2003 after NCAA's, the rest of that year, the rest of 2003, and I came out with a great crop of players at college tennis, is that I was the highest ranked professional, starting, for those first 6 months. And the USTA came to me and said, we want to take over and everything. And I said, no, things are working out really well for me. I appreciate it. But once you decline that, you are not getting the wild cards, maybe the grants, the free this, the free that, whatever. But to me, I had such a loyalty to Pierre, my longtime coach, who helps me in my system every single day. And I had this other gentleman, Tom Boyson, who is the assistant coach at Nebraska, an incredible coach. And he was the assistant at Vanderbilt. And he was helping me travel. And he was my assistant coach on the road while Pierre was managing my tennis career. And so I turned down the USTA, and they don't like that. Right.
Right.
So, they're going to approach, the top players and try to really take over, and then say, hey, this guy's doing great, or this girl's doing great. And they go back to their board and everybody's so happy and blah, 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 blah. Right. And, but that's, I think that to become a great player in the United States, you obviously, you need good guidance, but you have to think outside the box. It's not a cookie cutter model. You have to understand what is best for your child, how, the best personality of a coach for your child. You have to look at all these different things and understand that not every kid is the same. They need to be trained differently based on, it could be their techniques. It could be, their athleticism, so many different things. And then you go about working on that every single day in a very disciplined manner. And then, the children will become great players. There's no cookie cutter model for this tennis. For tennis development, there is not, and that's really what I can say about that.
Well, and that's what makes tennis so challenging, right? And that's why Parenting Aces is around, because there isn't one pathway for every single kid that will lead them to success. Every kid is different. Every family situation is different. So you have to pick and choose the pieces that work within your family and for your child. That said, with what's happening with USTA now, I feel like there's going to be a lot more responsibility on the part of the parents to get educated, to make sure that you have a coach for your child that you feel good about, not just teaching your child on the court, the tennis, X's and O's as they were, but also a good coach that you feel comfortable teaching your child these life lessons that tennis has to offer. Because I think we're seeing, and let me just be clear, I think it's a good thing that player development is not going to be this big chunky entity at USTA anymore. I think we see more accomplished players and more players who are there for the long run, who have come from coaches like you, Todd, and other private coaches, and like Doug and like Dewey, who are commenting here. Those are the coaches that are producing the top players around the world. It's not the federation. So I don't have a problem with USTA player development getting rolled in. What I do need to know is who is in charge now, who is going to be making decisions about junior competition and our tournaments. And if that's going to be this community tennis group at USTA, great. But who is it? I just want to know who's in charge. And if there's not anybody that's taking on that role, setting the calendar, setting the ranking system, being in charge of the online tournament management, all of that, then maybe UTR's time has really come. And, in terms of junior competition, this is the time for UTR to make a huge push, which they've been doing during the pandemic. I know tons of UTR events happening all over the place right now, but, what is USTA's role going to be in that aspect of things? And that's the question we haven't gotten an answer to, even though Martin Blackmon did send out a separate email last week after USTA's email. Martin's email basically just said the same thing that USTA's did. It didn't provide any other insight or detail on player development.
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, that and I coach a small little program and everything, is that the main thing that I focus on, whether it's a very high level player or a lower level player, is how can this player get better? I don't really focus on the numbers and the rankings and the UTR and all of these things, because I believe, and it's something that I focused on my whole life, is that if you're continually getting better every single day, then those numbers are going to take care of themselves. So for me, whether it's a USTA tournament, a UTR tournament, maybe a low-level professional tournament, whatever it shall be, every time you play a tennis tournament, it's an exam. And this is what Pierre used to do with me, is that every time you play a tournament, I don't care what it is, right? And hopefully your coach or your mom or dad are there, is that they're seeing, maybe some things that broke down or things that need to be worked on. And then when you go right back to training, you're working on those things to get better and better and better. And so I can tell you is that my top player that you've all heard of, this boy, Ronald Homan, I took him to train 4 or 5 sessions with Milos Raonic in the South Florida area. And so after about the 4th or 5th workout, we knew this would be the last workout. It was that, what do you think of a developing young player that wants to achieve their goals? And his thing was, every single day, you must get better at something. Your forehand, your backhand, your slice, your transition, something. It has to get better. And
or your mental game, right? The mental game gets thrown in that pot too. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's a huge thing, and we're working on with that all the time with the mental aspect. But I can tell you that something has to get better. And so if you don't feel like you've gotten better that particular day, do not leave the courts. That's what I'm going to tell you. Don't leave. It could be indoor court time, so it may get a little more costly, but figure out a way that you're proud when you're leaving the tennis arena that something got better. And that's on the coaches and the player. So sure. That's what and then, basically the tournaments and the results are going to take care of themselves, because if you go day by day by day and you get better every single day, you're going to probably do pretty well in your events. It may not happen in the short term, but in the long term, you should do very well.
Sure. Well, Javier, thank you for commenting. Javier said Craig Morris is the new head of player development he's head of community tennis. And I had the opportunity to meet with Craig last spring. It's been over a year ago, when I was at Lake Nona for the NCAAs. And he's a great guy, and he's got some, solid ideas, but, we'll see. So Javier, thank you for that information. And I'm going to say your name wrong. Go Tom. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. Says that USTA PD for the past few years is very different than from the past, and I agree with you. And Todd and I both acknowledge that. I don't know if you just joined the conversation, but we talked about that and agree that Martin has made some really good changes and is, also done a really good job at bringing in private coaches to the process. And Elliot, no, Martin Blackmon is not out. Martin Blackmon is still the head of player development, but Craig, I guess, is going to be the guy who's handling the junior competition structure, rankings, and tournaments, and all of that stuff. So if somebody knows differently, please feel free to type in the comments and clarify that, but that's my understanding. So I mean, we know that that change is coming. We know that with this pandemic, everybody's been hit in the pocketbook. We know that if the U.S. Open does indeed happen, as USTA looks to be planning for, it's not going to bring in the revenues that it's brought in traditionally. And we all know that U.S. Open revenues really are what support USTA's budget the rest of the year. So we still don't know what that's going to mean overall for the impact on the organization of USTA, but USTA decided to take a preemptive step and make these cuts this past week. So, for the coaches that lost their jobs last week, I mean, my heart goes out to you. I told Ryler DeHart, if there's anything Parenting Aces can do to help him, but that offer goes to any coach that lost their position last week. I don't know what we can do, but certainly I'm happy to have any of the coaches on this platform, on our podcast, to help them talk about their philosophy as a coach. And Todd, not to put more competition out there for you, but I mean, my heart just goes out to these people who have devoted their lives to the sport and, find themselves without a job, and especially the ones with families to support. So it's scary times out there.
Yeah, I agree. And these coaches, I know a bunch of them, and they are very good coaches. So for them to be entering the private sector arena, to me, is great. It should help American tennis. So in my generation, like I said, of the players that I competed with in amateur or pro tennis, like I said, most went into college coaching or they went and started working for the USTA. So now, and I used to think, man, that's kind of a disservice because, these great players and they have a lot of great knowledge and everything. So they're hopefully going into the private sector. That should be really good for the parents out there, that they're going to have someone with that type of experience that can work with their child. To me, that's amazing.
It is amazing. Unfortunately, we don't yet have a comprehensive list of those coaches' names and how to get in touch with them. But if any of you have access to that information, or if someone watching this is one of those coaches, please contact me. You can email me, lisa@parentingaces.com. It's very easy. Send me your name and contact information if you are headed back into the private sector for junior development, junior coaching. We'll put together a list and start pushing it out for families looking for good coaches for their kids.
That would be great.
So, I mean, competition, this is one of the things I love about you, Todd. You're not afraid to have other coaches out there doing the work because you realize that you're limited in the number of kids you can work with at a time. And so I'm sure there have been families that have come to you that you've had to say, I'm really sorry, we're full right now, or, your child just doesn't fit in with the group that we've currently got, and whether it's experience level or goals or whatever that is, because, you are very conscientious about making sure that the group of kids you work with meshes well and supports each other so that everybody grows together. So maybe it's a good thing for you to have other coaches out there to be able to refer these families to. Certainly from where I sit, I'm always happy to refer great coaches to the families that reach out to me, and I'm happy to do that. Elliot's saying, yeah, but where do we go after that? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I mean, and I think that's the challenge right now. Nobody really has answers yet. We're all kind of in this limbo phase with our sport. We know that junior rankings have been frozen, which is kind of another issue with USTA announcing that National Hard Courts is happening. I went on the tournament websites, and they're using ranking lists from 2019 to determine entry into the event. So I don't know if that's going to change. Entry's open tomorrow, so maybe that's going to change. But we know that USTA has frozen rankings. We don't know for how long. I had heard through September, or through August till September 1st. I don't know if that's changed since last week because everything seems to be in a constant state of flux. So to me, that means even if you choose to take your child to National Hard Courts, it's not going to impact their USTA ranking. It will likely impact their UTR because UTR captures all that match data. We don't know if college coaches are going to be allowed to be on site, both from a tournament allowing them, because the tournament has said it's going to restrict the number of people that can be on site. But also, we don't know what the recruiting rules are going to be in August. So we don't know if NCAA is going to allow the coaches to be there and recruit. So there's still just a lot of unknowns at this point, and I encourage people to keep checking back on USTA's website. If you're considering taking your child to national hard courts, one of the 4 locations, then check those tournament websites for updates. I'm hoping they'll do a good job at updating as news becomes available. Yes, I know they were frozen as of March 18th, but if you the rankings, that is, were frozen as of March 18th, 2020. However, if you look on the tournament websites for the 2020 National Hardcourt events and you look at the player selection tab, the information that's there indicates that they're using 2019 ranking lists for selection. So again, registration's not open until tomorrow. Maybe that just hasn't been updated yet, and maybe it will be before entries open. So but as of right now, that's the information on the tournament website. So lots going on.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin.
I mean, is there anything else you're hearing about these USTA announcements that we need to share, or any resources that we haven't already mentioned where people can get information?
I'm not better at that than you. There's no way.
I mean, I think we have to keep checking USTA's website. I think we have to keep checking tournament websites, entry websites, and know that UTR is continuing to announce more and more and more events. We had tournament directors from 2 different events on this live stream last week. So there are plenty of opportunities for your kids to play matches if that's what you're choosing to do. Again, keeping in mind that whatever you choose, their USTA ranking will not be impacted at least through the end of July. So any matches they play through the rest of June and through July will not impact their USTA ranking, which I think is a good thing, because I think the kids, and I don't know if you're seeing this with the kids you're working with, Todd, but they need to get out and play matches, right? Even if it's not going to affect their ranking. They just need to get their competitive muscles working again.
Well, yes. I think everything is managed, right? And hopefully, the parents out there have someone that's really good managing, their child's tennis career. So what I can tell you is that you never want a junior player competing when they're not ready, either physically, mentally, or with their tennis game. So, you have a lot of parents that are maybe chasing points or throwing their kids in tournaments, and it's not managed well. And what can happen is that, the child can get hurt emotionally. Their confidence level can go down, so we always go back to the proper training. And then when the child is ready to compete, I love it. Go out and compete, assess how well they're competing, see how they're doing mentally, physically, technically, tactically, all these things, and then go right back to training and fix it and work on it, and then go right back into that competitive arena and go after it again and get better.
Yeah. And I'll say, I mean, so this is an ongoing thing for me. I still haven't played since the pandemic started. I'm still not comfortable being out there. I know, shaking your head at me, but that's just where I'm at. So at some point I'll get back out and play. But for now, what I want to say to the families is, don't rush things. I mean, make sure that if you're going to go to a tournament, that you feel good about the steps that the tournament is taking to keep your family safe while you're out there. If your child hasn't been training for the past few months, the first step is not to throw them in a tournament where they're going to have the added stress of competition. They need to work their way back into the physical state and the mental state to be at a tournament and play multiple matches over the course of several days. So especially in the heat of the summer. So please use your good judgment when making decisions about, when to put them back in. And I know some people never stopped playing during the pandemic. I know that. Where I was, or where I am, it wasn't an option to keep playing unless you had your own private court. But in many places, tennis was never shut down, so those kids kept playing. I get that, but so many did not. And I just want to be sure that when you do decide to take them to a tournament, please just make sure that they're not going to go to that tournament and get injured or get ill unnecessarily because they're not properly conditioned to be back out there. Of course, stuff happens. We know that, but don't make it because they didn't, they're not ready yet. It's just not necessary yet. But if they have been training and they are ready, go for it and you feel good about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you should ever rush into anything, right? And you're dealing with young adults, right? So the confidence can be very fragile. So when a player doesn't have their best tournament or they weren't ready and maybe they suffer a loss that they shouldn't have had and this and that, then the coaches really have to build up that confidence level of that player through great training and showing them that they're doing a great job and they're getting better and all those things. So the confidence is very fragile, for young adults as well as college and professional players. I can tell you about this my own experiences. So that's why I'm very, very cautious about putting players in tournaments until they're 100% ready to compete. And when they are, I love it.
Yeah. All right. I think we've kind of covered all our bases today. Todd, thank you for the email that you prepared. I think it was really interesting to kind of get some numbers out there. And I know there are lots of resources for people, but it was nice to have that here for you to share that. So thank you. And if people are interested in reaching out to you, if they have questions or want to find out about coming to train with you, how do they get a hold of you other than by leaving their contact info in the comments right here? Oh, Todd, you there?
Todd, Todd. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you froze for a second. Say it again.
Oh, all right. Yeah, so you can contact me anytime at my email address, which is Todd, Todd, at twtennis.com. Or you can find me on social media where I post clips almost every single day. I mean, at least Monday through Friday. In fact, I have a couple of clips of me actually playing tennis today. So it was Ronnie and I, as well as one of my assistant pros, Daniel, who was an incredible player as well. And so we're hitting balls, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. So, I love when people are looking at my social media as well, seeing what I think is some pretty good training here in South Florida in a system that's different. So you can find me on Facebook under my name or my business account, or you can follow me on Instagram as well at Todd Widom _tennis. So, I look forward from your viewers. A bunch of your viewers have contacted me over the years. I love to hear from the parents, their perspective on things, and maybe they want to come to South Florida for their child to train, maybe in a little bit different arena. And I love it all. It's great. I love to meet new people and maybe see some new faces in my arena here in South Florida.
Well, and I want to say too, we actually have a playlist on our YouTube channel, the Parenting Aces YouTube channel, with all of Todd's videos too. So if you're looking for a spot to go and just see all of them, just go to YouTube on the Parenting Aces channel and you'll see the Todd Widom playlist. So we've got them all compiled. And I want to also say, I know Todd is a regular on Parenting Aces. I want to just put out there's no financial arrangement or anything between Todd and me. I like talking to him because he keeps it real. There's no BS when I talk to Todd, and I feel like he gives me, and as a result, all of you, the straight scoop on what's going on out there. So that's why he's on all the time. I am happy always to chat with any coach, any player, any parent that would like to come on. Just reach out to me. I'm here. I'm on every social media outlet. And again, you can always email me, lisa@parentingaces.com. So with that, Todd, thanks. Good luck. Is Ronnie going back to LSU in the fall? What are we hearing?
Of course. Of course. Yeah, we're just training. He's been able to play some great events against some really high-ranked professionals. So he's gotten those reps in. He's training for the fall. He's getting ready to go back. And, we're preparing him the best that we can. And like you said, with the Parenting Aces, basically our relationship started because I just wanted to get great information out to the parents, because I had a bunch of parents contacting me, and I was thinking to myself, ooh, that's not right. That's wrong. That's wrong. Man, we need some help for the parents to help navigate their child through this very complex, junior tennis, development for their child, and college placement as well, and maybe a pro career on top of that. So that's how we started, and I keep trying to get you out to South Florida.
I know.
Out here yet?
I know.
You gotta let me know. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, let me let you go and get back to your cute family. I know you've been on the court all day. And to the viewers, thank y'all for tuning in. And again, if you have ideas for people or topics that you'd like us to tackle here, please just let me know. Or if you want to come on and talk about something, I'm here. The platform's here for you. Just reach out to me and we'll make it happen. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Thanks.